Hey, it's Emily, and there are so many games coming out in 2025, it's a bit overwhelming. So I thought it'd be fun to put together a tier list, ranking which games I intend to buy and which ones I plan on skipping out on. I tried to put together a pretty comprehensive list, and to preface this, there are a few titles here that have released prior digitally, but are now getting a physical release in 2025. So a lot of those are included in here because I know a lot of you like to collect physical games like I do. As well as a lot of different new games from multiple genres. So I'm going to put my glasses on so I can actually see and start ranking these. So here is the tier list I put together. There are 84 titles total. I'm sure I'm missing a number of games. Either I forgot to add them or since this video was created have since been announced. But I think 84 games is sufficient to rank for today. And I will explain exactly what the tier ranking orders I have here. So at the top, I have pre-order, meaning that I've already pre-ordered the game. Then for plan to buy, this means that I intend to purchase this game sometime in 2025. Maybe not right at release, but sometime within the year. A wish list is just a step lower to plan to buy, meaning that I might buy it in 2025, but it's not a high priority, so I could push it off into a year or so from now. Then wait for reviews is probably self-explanatory. This just means I'm waiting to hear what the general consensus is regarding these games to see whether or not I want to add it to my wish list or bump it up to plan to buy for 2025. Then at the lowest rank, I have skip, which means that I plan on skipping this game for one reason or another. Generally because it's just a game not for me, or there might be some other reasons why I don't have any plans on purchasing the game. So I'm going to start off with a game that is actually not really a new 2025 release, but I wanted to mention it because I think a lot of other people might be interested in also pre-ordering this game. So hint, hint, this is going in the pre-order tier, and that is Final Fantasy VII Remake for the PS5. So of course, this is not a new game. It came out years ago. However, I never got a hold of the PS5 copy, and it had since skyrocketed in price, at least here in North America. But one of the retailers that I really like to buy games from, this is not sponsored in any way, and I've talked about them plenty of times in the past, is Video Games Plus, and they finally convinced Square Enix to reprint these games, and it should be coming out in February. So I'm really excited to finally get the PS5 version for this game. So with that out of the way, onto the real ranking list for games coming out in 2025. So none of these games are in any particular order. I maybe should have ordered them by release date, but again, some of these have unknown release dates. We just were given information that it's coming out in 2025. So it may or may not be coming out in 2025. We'll see with a few of these. So first we're going to go with Neon Blood. This is a kind of cyberpunk RPG that really reminds me of Anno Mutationum, which was one of my favorite indie games that came out a couple years ago. So this one I'm actually very interested in. So I'm going to put this into wish list, hoping that it's good. I could always bump this down, but I'm really intrigued by this game because I love me some sci-fi RPG games. Then up next is Atelier Yumiya, and this is one that I've already pre-ordered, and I'm actually getting the collector's edition for the PS5, which is looking back a bit bonkers because that's really expensive and probably unnecessarily expensive, but I'm really into the Atelier games and Yumiya looks great. Next is a game that I plan to buy and I'm probably going to be pre-ordering very soon because it is coming out in January. The Otha Fagana remaster that Xseed is releasing, and this comes in a nice limited edition that, again, I plan to buy probably very soon, within probably the next week or so. I did play the demo at Anime Expo over the summer, and it was fun. I'm very much a Falcom stan, so I, of course, am buying this. Then Atomfall is a game I don't know too much about, other than it looks like one of those survival adventure games. Graphically, it looks really neat. I don't know much else other than that. And unfortunately, I think I'll be skipping because that's just usually not the genre I gravitate towards, except for ones that are maybe a bit more RPG-like. This next one, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, Bakaru. I think the digital game may be already out, but the physical is coming out in 2025. And I think it's like a level-based action game, which typically is not really my thing. It looks interesting because it is very Japanese, especially with, I think, the environments and things they incorporate in there. But again, I don't think it's for me. Then Shadow Labyrinth is a Bandai Namco game that involves Pac-Man in a Metroidvania kind of dark style. It looks really interesting, but Metroidvanias are not really my thing. I've made a few exceptions over the years that incorporate a few more RPG kind of elements. And I think this one is also related to the Amazon show. Don't take my word for that. It looks interesting, but again, not for me, so I'll be skipping. The next up is, I believe, from the Danganronpa creators, called the 100 Line Last Defense Academy. This was featured in a Nintendo Direct, and I'm intrigued by this one because I do like visual novels, and I think this one incorporates some RPG elements to it as well. So I'm curious how they'll go about this. And because it is made by the creators of Danganronpa, that also just gives me another element of intrigue. So I'm going to, it's between wishlist and wait for reviews, but I'll probably just wishlist it since I'll most likely be picking it up at some point. The next is a Care Bears game. I just thought it was hilarious that there's a Care Bears game now in existence and coming out in 2025. Definitely not my speed, but I just wanted to include it to spread awareness. A lot of this is just to spread awareness of interesting types of games that this one happens to be getting a physical release. So I'll be skipping. And then the Legend of Heroes, Trails Through Daybreak. I'm a big, again, Falcom stan, and I love the Trails games. So this one has already been pre-ordered and coming out on Valentine's Day. So you may have already guessed how I plan on spending my Valentine's Day. Deep into Trails. The next is a collection that I think was initially released in Asia, but is now coming out to the West, and it is the Kemco RPG Collection #1. And Kemco is very prolific with a lot of their RPG games, and they tend to not get very favorable reviews. I've yet to actually play one, but I'm inclined to think that this is probably not for me, so I'll be skipping out on this RPG collection that's coming out on the Switch. The next is Pirate Yakuza, the next game in the Like a Dragon series. The Yakuza games are ones that I've been meaning to play. They sound really fun and up my alley. I've just yet to actually dive in. So maybe in 2025 I will correct that, but Pirate Yakuza is probably not the best one to start with. So I think for now I'm going to skip, or maybe I'll wishlist it, because I do probably intend to buy it eventually, because I think the Yakuza games are probably up my speed. I just don't have any plans in 2025 to buy it because I'm well behind in the Yakuza franchise. The next is a Phantom Brave game from NAS, The Lost Hero. This is kind of a quirky strategy RPG, which I really enjoy strategy RPGs, but I've yet to actually dive into the Phantom Brave games. So this is one that, again, intrigues me, and I tend to like NAS games, so for now I'm going to be wishlisting this one. Now for the Plucky Squire. This was at one point a highly anticipated release for me because the premise just looked so neat, of how you kind of get shrunken down into this character that can jump into books and other places in the real world. But I heard rather mixed reviews, especially how it wasn't really polished towards the end. So I'm inclined to probably skip out on this one, unfortunately, unless there's some major upgrades that come along the way that will be incorporated into the physical release. But from what I've heard, that isn't really in the plans. Another indie release that I was highly anticipating is Neva, and this is from the same developers as Gris or Gris, and the art direction was just gorgeous. I'm always in awe at seeing what these developers make. So I'm really happy that they're having a retail physical release. So this is one that I do plan on buying sometime in 2025. Now here is a fighting game, Capcom Fighting Collection 2. For those who followed my channel, I'm not really a fighting game person at all, but I'm always happy to see different games released in genres that I may not necessarily play, but those who do will get to enjoy physical releases. And I do like the cover art actually for this collection. But again, because I'm not really a fighting game person, I will be skipping out on that collection. Now, I did watch the trailer at the Game Awards for Mafia: The Old Country, but I am a little bit, I guess, picky when it comes to action-adventure games. So I'm not really sure how I feel about this one. I might just wait for reviews because I do like some action-adventure games, even when they have a lot of shooting elements, like I believe this one will have. I just have to be in the right mood to play it. So we'll see how it goes. and if it's supposed to be really good, then I might bump it up to my wish list tier. Now, Little Nightmares 3, I've never played Little Nightmares 1 or 2. I've heard good things through the grapevine, of course. And so this series is one I might dive into at some point, but given the state of my backlog, I probably won't have time, to be honest, so I'll be skipping out on this game, most likely. But of course, if there are any games that I end up putting in the skip tier that you think I may like, I'm always open to reevaluating. So I am a fan of the Rune Factory series, so I am looking forward to Guardians of Azuma, which is supposed to be kind of a new direction for the Rune Factory series. The prior games were all very kind of in the Western sort of motif and environments, whereas this is the first time we get to see the world on the east side. It looks really cool with different dragons and things like that. However, after Rune Factory 5, I've kind of learned to not pre-order these games, especially if they're only available on the Switch when it comes to physical releases. I still haven't been able to get through Rune Factory 5 due to its optimization issues. So for this new entry, I think I'm just going to put it on the wish list for now and hope it's optimized very well on the Switch, especially when the Switch 2 comes around. Maybe it's going to be perfect on that system. If that's the case, then I'll bump it up to my plan to buy in 2025, especially because I probably want to get the limited edition that they're coming out with. Judah is a new game that I don't know too much about except from a few trailers, and this is from the creators of BioShock. I'm a fan of BioShock. It's been years since I played it, but this does look really interesting. But again, I'm a little bit particular now when it comes to survival horror and action-adventure games, so I'm going to wait for reviews to see how this goes. But overall, I'm pretty optimistic that it'll probably be a fun game. Now, Avowed, I believe, is Obsidian's first fantasy RPG, I want to say. And I do like Western RPGs, but there's only really a handful that I've gotten deep into when it comes to Western RPGs versus JRPGs. There's not too much I know about it at this point, so I'm going to wait for reviews to see how that one is before I decide to dive in. Now, Clear Obscure Expedition 33 is another Western RPG, but this one has turn-based mechanics and it looks really beautiful. This is from, I think, a French studio, and it might be their first game that they're releasing, at least in this genre, and so I'm very much hoping it's good. There's actually a GameStop exclusive edition I've been considering pre-ordering. I'm still a little bit on the fence whether or not I should pre-order because I've been trying to be a little more restrictive and choosy when it comes to pre-ordering games for this coming year. I'm going to say I plan to buy it because I do want to support games like this. I might also have to wait for reviews to see how it goes before I officially buy it. Now for Monster Hunter, I never really got deep into Monster Hunter. I tried Monster Hunter Rise on the Switch a couple years ago. Didn't get very far. I do feel like this is a game that you need to play with friends in order to fully enjoy it, which I'm not much of a multiplayer gamer at all. I very much like my solo experiences, so I'm probably going to be skipping out on this, but I hope for fans it's a good game. Now for the upcoming Yu-Gi-Oh! Early Days collection, this is one that I'm intrigued by because I've been getting back into the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. I was a big fan as a kid, and so I've been rewatching the original and making my way up to all the different series that have come out over the years. I feel like this would be a fun game to kind of try because it's based off of the early games that were more inspired by the anime than the actual card game that people still play today. I think I do plan on buying it. I still haven't decided if I want to pre-order it or not, but yeah, I'm probably going to be buying it sometime this year. Now, Big Kitty in the Big City is one that I believe that's already out, but Fangamer is finally giving it a physical release in 2025. And I like my cat games, I won't lie. And this one looks awfully cute. So I think it's one I'm going to be wish listing since Fangamer does a pretty good job at keeping most of their games in stock. So I might not get to it this year in 2025, but maybe sometime after. Now with Game of Thrones, I'm not the biggest fan of the franchise. I did read the first book. I thought it was a little long in the tooth, especially with the multiple perspectives you had to reread the same scenes for. And the show, I watched it with friends, but I was never that into it. And I didn't watch the last season that everyone hated. The new game, if it's good, I might consider bumping it up, but honestly, I think I'm going to be skipping out on it. Now, another big release that's coming out in 2025 is Grand Theft Auto 6. I never got into the Grand Theft Auto series. I played a little bit of San Andreas on the PS2. Mostly watched my brother play it, then played it myself. Yeah, I don't really have an interest, really, in this game. It might be fun to watch someone else stream it, but play it myself, not really, so I'll be skipping out on that game. Now, for Death Stranding 2, I never played the first Death Stranding, so I definitely won't be pre-ordering it, or probably playing it in 2025, if I'm being honest. Though I do have access to the first game through my brother's Steam account, I believe, so I might give that one a whirl. I'm not sure if the game's for me, necessarily, so for now I will be skipping out on the sequel, unless somehow I get around to playing the first game and I somehow get really into it and must play the sequel. So that should be in the skip. Now this next one is a little bit of a weird one to have on this list because it's a gacha game, but it is coming out with a physical release in January 2025. And it is kind of the only gacha game that I play and I do enjoy. So I figured I might just buy this physical release just to support the devs because it's a game I've enjoyed, but I've been totally free to play, so I haven't actually spent money on it. And the goodies that come inside look kind of fun. So I'm kind of considering it more as a novelty piece to have on my shelf. So I do plan on buying it, but you guys are free to clown me down in the comments if you think it's a little silly to buy a physical release for a gacha online game. So next is the physical release of Lisa, which is an RPG and it looks interesting. I don't know too much about the game myself, but I've heard it has a pretty loyal fan base. So when it comes to the physical release, I might wait for reviews to see whether or not I want to buy it. I do know the game's already out, and so I could definitely look at reviews for the game itself. But when it comes to physical releases, I am a little particular in that a lot of games I like to get complete on the cartridge when it comes to the Switch or the disc when it comes to the PS5 without any necessary downloads, since it's kind of a waste to get physical releases. You have to have connected to the internet anyways to actually play them. Despite me saying I'm buying the Honkai Star Rail physical disc. Serenity Forge has a pretty good reputation of putting out really good builds, so I'm not too worried. But again, it's one I want to wait and decide on a little bit later to see if it's something you want to get. Same thing goes for Tales of Grace's F. Bandai Namco made a huge blunder with their last Tales of game, Tales of Symphonia remaster. I'm really hoping that they don't continue that trend, though hopefully they've learned their lesson, but I do want to wait for reviews before getting the physical release of this game, even though I hear it's one of the best Tales of games. And it's definitely one I want to play eventually. Whether or not I want to get the physical release is a little up in the air. Elden Ring, Night Rain. I've never played Elden Ring, and I do know Night Rain is more of a co-op game, so it's not necessarily the same kind of Souls-like experience that From Software is known for. So honestly, I'm probably going to skip out on this. I do want to try Elden Ring eventually, and some other Souls-like games. I just need to fit in some time to experiment with genres outside of my comfort zone. Now, Professor Layton in the New World of Steam is a game I'm really interested in. However, I am skeptical whether or not it's actually coming out in 2025 because Level 5 has really overpromised so many of their releases and pushed back a lot of their releases. We haven't heard anything else about this game, so I'm not really sure if it's coming out in 2025 or not. But for now, I'm going to be wishlisting it and hoping it does well. And it's more of a return to form when it comes to the Layton series. Now, Suikoden 1 and 2 remaster or remake is another kind of old school JRPG that I never really got to experience. So I'm really happy to see it being remastered and available on modern systems. Whether or not I want to buy it day one is up for debate. Now, given all of the releases I do plan on pre-ordering and buying in 2025, Suikoden 1 and 2 might have to be less of a priority for me. So I think for now I'm going to wishlist it and wait for a sale before I give it a try. Outer Worlds 2 is another game that was revealed during the Game Awards, saying it's coming out in 2025. I never played the first one. I'm not as well versed when it comes to the Fallout sort of games. So I'm probably going to skip out on this one just due to time. There's only so many games one could play, right? So I've added a number of visual novels to this list, most of which I don't know too much about because I try not to read too into the plot and the story when it comes to a lot of visual novels, so that it's kind of left as a surprise. I don't know too much about Despera Drops, other than it's an Otome game, so I'm gonna wait for reviews to see how it is that aren't spoiler heavy, to see whether or not it's one I want to add to my backlog of multiple visual novels that I need to get to. Split Fiction was the co-op game from the makers of It Takes Two, and it looked really interesting. The only issue is that I don't really play any co-op games, and I don't really play online multiplayer. So I'm a little bit split on this one. So for now, I'm just gonna wait for reviews, and if it does well and I catch it on sale, then I might add it to my wish list and my purchase list. Now, Wuchang Fallen Feathers looks like a really cool action game. Again, I'm very particular when it comes to my action games, and this one might be interesting. I do really like games that are set in kind of ancient China or kind of mythological China. I don't know too much about it, other than, again, it's coming out in 2025, and I saw a little clip of the trailer. So I'll wait for reviews on this one to see how it settles. Next is Dungeon Drafters for the Nintendo Switch, I think some other platforms. And this one is another one that looked really intriguing to me. I just don't know if I have time to play it. It's a dungeon crawler RPG with roguelite elements, I believe. I don't play too many of these games, but there's a certain charm to its pixel art and kind of other elements I saw in the brief trailer. So I might wait for reviews to see how it goes. This next game, if you follow me at all, you probably know exactly where this is going. And technically we can't pre-order this at the time of this recording, but you better believe once it's up for pre-orders, it is going to be pre-ordered. So I'll be putting it up in that tier. But this is the remake of the first arc in the Trail series. This is one of my favorite series of all time, and I just adore the first arc in the games. So seeing it remastered in 3D is, I think, going to be such a magical experience that I can't wait for. So in North America, there is a retail release coming through Amazon, which I have a feeling is through the limited run storefront on Amazon as their retail release. But Limited Run Games is also doing a collector's edition, which I will be ordering because, again, I'm a clown and I like to collect my Trails merch. But hopefully they do it right and there's no issues with the build or the item quality once it does finally arrive. And this next game, the first Berserker, was another game featured on the Game Awards. It's another action-heavy game that looks interesting visually, but I just don't know if these are really for me, so I'm probably going to be skipping out on this one. Next up is Freedom Wars Remastered, which was originally a PS Vita title, and now it's going to be made available on the PS5 as well as the Nintendo Switch. It's getting a physical Asian English edition through PlayAsia. I don't think they're making a Western physical release, at least as of today. I hear it's a lot of fun. I don't know if it's for me because, again, it's another multiplayer game. If I happen to have friends who convince me to play with them, I might be so inclined, but I think for now I'm going to be skipping out on this one. But it's nice to see more Vita exclusive games being available on modern platforms. Now next is not a new game, of course, but there is a new retail edition of The Messenger coming out, both on the Nintendo Switch as well as the PlayStation 5. This is a game that I used to go for so much money on the Switch and PlayStation systems, but it's nice to see that they're finally making a more available retail edition. This is from the same devs as Sea of Stars, which was pretty critically acclaimed in the RPG space, but Messenger is more of a kind of Metroidvania style platformer. So is it for me? Probably not, so I'll be skipping on this, but it's, again, nice to see retail editions of games that go bonkers on the physical market finally be at more affordable prices. Now, this is another Fangamer physical release that will be releasing in 2025 called Off. I think this is from a indie French studio, and I want to say this was made in RPG Maker. So this does have, I think, RPG elements to it. It looked interesting. I don't know too much about the gameplay itself, so it's one that I may end up buying, but I think for now I'll be skipping out on it. Fangamer has a reputation of putting out really great builds when it comes to their physical releases, so I'm not worried about any issues on that front. But again, there's just so many games, I don't think I have time for that one, though it does look really cool. Borderlands 4 here, if you could read it. Again, another very popular franchise. It's just not one for me, so I'll be skipping out on that. Now, Pokemon Legends, AZ, we don't know too much about this title at all, other than it's supposed to be coming out in 2025 on the Switch. So hopefully we'll get more information about this title soon, if it hasn't already happened since posting this video. But I've been kind of let down by Pokemon games for a very long time. So I don't really, I think, have any plans on picking this up when it comes out. Even if it reviews very well, I might just wait and see what happens, because I think if it does release on the Switch, it may or may not get a Switch 2 version eventually, or I don't know if they're trying to do simultaneous releases or how that might work. But for now, it's just not a game I have really slated to play in 2025. So I'll be skipping this for now. Again, I might bump it up to my wish list if it reviews well, but I'm not super excited about it, unfortunately. So this game I'm excited to include in this tier list because it was newly released, that it's finally getting localized here in the West, and that is Trails in Sky versus Ys. And so this is Falcom's fighting game that they released way back when on the PSP in Japan only. I will be buying this. Am I a fighting game person? No. As I mentioned with the Capcom Fighting Collection 2 release, I'm just a sucker when it comes to Trails and Falcom games in general. So I do plan on buying this. Will I pre-order it when it comes up? If there's a nice collector's edition, I will, just to secure the collector's edition, but I don't know if I'll be playing this day one. Maybe I will, but maybe I won't. Depends, again, when this actually releases and what my kind of game schedule looks like. Now, Doom: The Dark Ages, I'm not gonna lie, this looks really neat. And I haven't played a first-person shooter game in the longest time. It hasn't really been since, I think, Return to Castle Wolfenstein and E.T., when I used to play that with my brother and my dad almost religiously. So even though I am intrigued, I don't know if I'll be in the mood for a first-person shooter game ever again. It might be something I watch someone stream or play, but I don't know if I'll actually play myself. So I'm going to be skipping out on it, even though it does look really cool. Like a lot of these games are. It's just, again, they're not for me. Now, I do have nostalgic memories when it comes to the Fable franchise, because for a short time I did play some Xbox 360 games, Fable 2 being one of them, and I watched a little bit of the original Fable playthrough. My brother was playing it. I'm hoping that this is a good new game in that franchise. They haven't really revealed too much more about the gameplay, I want to say. I hope it's a return to form, at least Fable 2 in a bit, when it comes to the story and characters and some of the gameplay. But yeah, I'm going to wait for reviews to see how this goes. And I might be inclined to give it a whirl on PC. Now, Dragon Quest 1 and 2 Remake, the HD 2D remasters, these are classic games. I'm probably going to eventually get them. I haven't purchased Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D yet, even though that is probably something I would prioritize over the 1 and 2 games, since 3 is just so well regarded in the Dragon Quest franchise. But I think eventually I might get this, especially if I get it at a good discount. Now, another highly anticipated release, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Now, I never played any of the Metroid Prime games. I played a little bit of the side-scrolling games, which I did have fun at. This one, I don't know. I really hope the fans who've been waiting for so long, it's really good and they really enjoy it. I just don't think this is a game for me. I might be converted, so let me know if I should at least give the first Metroid remake a try on the Switch. Yeah, I just don't really anticipate playing this at all in 2025, or even know if this is actually releasing in 2025. We'll have to wait and see if that comes to be or not. Likewise, with Fantasy Life, the girl who steals time, we don't know if that's actually going to be coming out in April in 2025 or not, since it's been pushed back multiple times, it seems like now. I really enjoyed Fantasy Life on the 3DS, so I'm really hoping this is good too. So I'll probably wishlist it and hope it comes out sometime in 2025, but I'm not holding my breath whether or not that comes out or not. Another action game that I honestly haven't really looked much into, but just seemed to be on quite a number of people's high priority for next year, is Hell Is Us. I know nothing about this game, and I didn't research it before this video, so that kind of tells you that my interest is really not that high. So I'm going to be skipping it, but if it somehow comes out to be amazing, I might give it a second look. Ghost of Yotai, though, I am looking forward to because I really like Ghost of Tsushima, and I imagine this new game is going to be just as good, if not better. We'll have to wait and see if that's the case or not. This is one that I would like to actually probably play in 2025, but when it comes to my schedule and time I have for games, especially trying to tackle more of my backlog in 2025, is most likely going to get waitlisted. So I'll put that there. Now for the Lunar Collection HD Remaster, this is another classic JRPG series that I never got into, but I've always been intrigued by. I'm just so happy that it's so accessible now on modern platforms. This is one I definitely plan to buy. I don't know if I will pre-order it. I might have to, especially if it's going to be through limited run games. I don't know if they've actually said where the physical releases will be coming out of, but if it's like Trails in the Sky First, who has the same publisher, Gung Ho, they're most likely going to be through limited run games, so I'll have to probably pre-order those, like the Grandia HD collection. Now, Graveyard Keeper is finally getting a physical release on the Switch, and it's one that I am intrigued by because this one gets a lot of comparisons to Stardew Valley, just with a more, again, kind of a morbid theme, which is, I think, a fun spin. These farming simulator games are such time sucks, so I don't know if I'll actually be able to play it in 2025, but it's definitely one I want to wish list and probably eventually get, since it's so highly regarded. Now for Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, I am so happy this is now going to be available on the Switch, so you better believe that I pre-ordered this, and I do hope to play it day one, even though the timing with Xenoblade X and Atelier Yumiya, they're kind of released like a day apart, which is unfortunate. I mentioned how I don't really play multiplayer games, but this does have a multiplayer mode that I may have to go and play because I just adore the Xenoblade Chronicles games. And I've heard really great things about X. So it's finally off the Wii U and available on the Switch. So I'm just floored that Monosoft made that happen. And definitely want to support it and play a lot of it. This is another game that I kind of stumbled across in my search of compiling games coming out next year. So this is Inheritance, the Crimson Manor. And this looks like kind of a dark gothic kind of whodunit sort of game that looked interesting. I don't know if I will necessarily get it anytime soon, but definitely something that's on my radar, though I'm probably going to be skipping out on it since I try not to go overboard with buying new games next year. Likewise, with Romancing Saga Minstrel Song Remaster, it's finally getting a physical release through Red Art Games. Saga games are ones that I'm still a bit skeptical about. I really want to try the one that came out this past year, Romancing Saga 2. I hear that that remaster is amazing and has so many quality of life improvements to it that make it a lot more approachable than other previous Saga games. Unfortunately, I don't think this particular Saga remake had a lot of those quality of life enhancements, so I'll be skipping out on this one. Now for Death End Request Code C. Right now, a lot of these type of games through Idea Factory are unfortunately getting hit by censorship, especially by Nintendo right now. I do have the first two games, and these are supposed to be kind of just fun plays on the gaming industry through a kind of horror-like RPG game. I don't know if I'll necessarily be picking up this one because I've yet to actually touch the first two Death End Request games I have, but it's definitely one that's been on my radar, so I might wait for reviews to see how that one goes. Now for Dynasty Warriors Origins, this seems like the most ambitious Dynasty Warriors game. I'm not really one for Musou games too much. I in fact have quite a few Musou games I've yet to touch, like the Fire Emblem Warriors, that I probably should get to before buying some more. So I'll be skipping out on this one, but it's always cool to see kind of the Dynasty Warriors lore continue to be expanded. Now quickly, Raven's Watch. This is also getting a physical release in 2025. It's kind of like your top-down roguelite action game. I don't play too many of these, but I think the screenshots I looked at looked interesting, so just wanted to mention it in case you happen to enjoy those type of games. Next is this game, Ellipse, I want to say. Now there's so many kind of random games that I never heard of when I was going through the pre-order list on Video Games Plus, which is where a lot of these are actually compiled from. I was using them as a bit of a reference for some of these releases, especially the physical releases. But this one I thought just looked so pretty. I know nothing about the game, but it's one that does intrigue me. So I might wait for reviews to see how that one performs physically. Now, I might put these two together because they are both otome visual novels that I haven't really looked into. A lot of them, especially when you're looking at the cover art and some of the screen captures, they kind of look very similar. And both of these look like they have some sort of, I don't want to say fantasy or maybe historical kind of element to them. They look pretty. So I'm going to wait for reviews for both of these to see how they are. So this first one is Tamarina, the Lucky Princess and the Tragic Knight. And the second one here is Battlefield Waltz. So I'll have to look a bit more deeply into these reviews to see how they, again, perform, the physical releases, as well as whether or not otome enjoyers enjoyed these stories or not. Now, this next game is an anime game, but it's not your typical fighting anime game. So this is Goblin Slayer, Another Adventure, A Nightmare Feast. I somewhat recently did watch the first season of Goblin Slayer, and I will say the first episode of that is not for the faint of heart. I was intrigued that this is actually a strategy RPG, and I haven't looked too much into the reviews. I think this is already released, and this is just the Western physical release that's finally coming out. So I might wait for reviews to see how that one ranks, because again, I like my strategy RPGs. And whether or not this one's any good, I can't say now. Now, there haven't been too many Nintendo first-party games other than Xenoblade here and maybe something else. Oh, and Metroid Prime 4. But the other one I have on this list is Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. So I never really played too much of Donkey Kong. I had Donkey Kong Country on the Game Boy Color way back in the day when I was a child. But I haven't really played any other ones. To be honest, I'm probably not going to be playing this one either, so I'll be skipping out on this release. Maybe I'll correct my ways when it comes to a lot of the Nintendo IPs, especially their platformer games. I just don't really dive with them for some reason or another. Maybe it's because I never grew up with Nintendo home console games. But for now, I will be skipping out on this release. This next game is a Toho game, which I know nothing about the Toho universe other than they have really cool vampire girl figures. And I just thought this cover art was so pretty. And so this is Toho Luna Nights. And I think this is like an anniversary sort of release of some sort, or I'm not totally certain what this game is. I just know it's not for me, but I was intrigued by, again, that really pretty cover art. Next up is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and this is a Western RPG. I don't know too much about the first game or what the second game is supposed to be about. Western RPGs, again, are hit or miss for me, so I might wait for reviews to see how that goes to see if I want to dive into it or not. Now, this is another game that's being published through Red Art Games called Elantros Wanderings. Looks like another RPG type game that may be interesting, may not be interesting. My just year is slated with so many RPG games that I'll be spending a lot of time in, so I just don't see myself playing this one, but it's cool that they're doing a physical release for this one. So down to the last row of games, and I believe there are 14 games left. Sorry for how long this video is inevitably going to be. Next is Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. So I remember watching a bit of Snake Eater on the original system way back in the day. I never played it, but I did watch a little bit of it. It's definitely a classic for a reason. I don't know if I'll actually play it myself, maybe watch a little bit of it, but I'll be probably skipping out on it, if I'm going to be honest. Next is another indie game that is getting a physical release in 2025, Slay the Princess. I know this made a huge splash, I think, through some streams for a bit, but honestly, it looks like such an interesting RPG game. Incorporates a really nice art style. I think it has that pencil-drawn sort of look to it, and it looks so cool. So I'm going to be wishlisting it, because it's probably something I want to eventually add to my collection. Another indie game that intrigued me is Cricket J's Really Peculiar Game. And this is another indie RPG that looks like it has a really cute art style and also just looks so charming. And from the description I read, it's supposed to also be very heartwarming. So it's something that's on my radar. So I'll have it on my wish list. I hope it, again, has a nice physical release that won't have any issues, but something I might get to eventually. Now for Ubisoft, we have the next Assassin's Creed Shadows game, which is their Assassin's Creed game taking place in Japan. I don't have too much exposure to Assassin's Creed games other than some of the early ones. I just have really fond memories of the first one in particular. And when it comes to Japanese themed games, I'm gonna be honest, I'm probably just gonna be playing Ghost of Yotai and skip out on this one entirely. So I'm probably gonna skip it unless, again, I hear amazing things. I don't know. Given Ubisoft's track record and Assassin's Creed's track record, I'm not too optimistic it'll play that well, but if it does and I'm proven wrong, then I might wait for it to get that nice Ubisoft discount that often happens with the releases, where they just ridiculously slash it months basically after it releases. Next one, I'm not even going to preface it because it's another Otome official novel I know nothing about. All I know is that it looks cute. It's, I believe, Genso Manage. Might be good, might not be good. I'll wait and see. And then another kind of indie-like game, Dwarf, which is kind of a fun play off of Dwarf, I believe. An action kind of top-down game, I believe, that plays like a tower defense game. So it looks really interesting. I might wait for reviews on this because I do want to get more into tower defense sort of strategy games. So this one looks pretty charming, so it might be right up my alley. Another game I'll be adding to my wish list that I remember seeing trailers for, I want to say last year when the digital release came out. And this is another visual novel, but this is something that's kind of a retro sci-fi space odyssey visual novel that is coming out on the PS5, and it's called Stories from Seoul, the Gang Dog. And I just really love the retro aesthetic with the greens, and I love me some sci-fi, so it's really cool to see this get a physical release. Now for Corpse Party 2, I never played any of the Corpse Party games. Not much of a horror kind of player. I mean, you've noticed there haven't been that many horror games, mostly because I think there haven't been that many announced, but again, it's not a genre that I closely watch. This is being published through Xseed, and I think they have a really nice edition that's coming out, but it's really not my cup of tea, so I don't really see myself playing it, so I'll be skipping it in 2025. This next game reminds me a lot of Paper Mario for some reason. It's a turn-based RPG kind of game, but the sort of 2.5 aesthetic just reminds me of Paper Mario in some way, and again, it's kind of cutesy nature to it. And I know nothing about the game, so I'm not sure if it's out yet digitally and just getting a physical release in 2025, but it's something that I will wait for reviews to see how it goes, since it intrigued me, but not enough for me to wish list it quite yet. Similarly, for this next one, Have a Nice Death, I remember when this first was announced, I believe on a Nintendo Direct, and it did get a physical release, I want to say last year, out in Europe, but I want to say that the build was not very good. There was some issue with it where it had to have some sort of download for it to run nicely. But this is a 2D action roguelike game, and it looks interesting. I'm not, again, usually that into roguelike games or even action 2D games, but there's something about the Grim Reaper kind of theme that always kind of tickles me, so I'll wait for reviews to see how that physical build works out. This next game is another one that has intrigued me, and it reminds me a lot of Stardew Valley in that you have this pixel sort of farm simulator, and it's called Pixel Shire. So this one looks really cute. I don't know if I need another farm simulator in my life, especially since I do have a couple on here that have intrigued me, and I still need to kind of fully dive into Stardew Valley again. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see kind of how this one, and especially the build, works out. So I have another Metroidvania on here. I feel like there's just so many Metroidvania games coming out. But what's different about this one is it's based off of Central South America lore. So that already in itself, I think, kind of separates it from the other millions of Metroidvanias we have out nowadays. And I do like the art style a lot. So it's one I will wait for reviews to see how that one goes. Now the last game on this tier list that I'm sure it's not really the last one because I'm sure I'm missing plenty of games here that have been announced or have yet to be announced, of course. For the purpose of this tier list and because of how long this is going, this will be the last one, and that is the new Civilization game. I know nothing about the Civilization games. I just know that some of the more recent ones, I want to say, haven't been as good as the previous ones, but maybe it depends on who you're talking to. Yeah, I never really dove into this franchise at all, and I don't think I plan to. So this will be another one for the skip tier. Here is an overview of the entirety of my tier list of games coming out in 2025, both physical releases as well as some digital new releases. So I'll be really interested to hear what games you guys plan on either buying or you've already pre-ordered. And also let me know if there's any discrepancies between our lists. If there are any games that you're really excited for that I may have put in my skip category that you've either already pre-ordered or plan to buy, or vice versa. But I think it's safe to say that 2025 is off to a great start with so many interesting and diverse number of releases in multiple different genres. And I'm sure there'll be plenty of new exciting releases in 2025 that you get to hear that we hopefully will sometime soon, especially with the new console coming out from Nintendo. It'll be a really interesting year, I think, for video games and collecting. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and let me know if you enjoyed this format or not. I know it was long, but hopefully it was interesting and you may have discovered some new games here or reconsidered how you wanted to prioritize the new releases coming out in 2025. But that's everything for me, and until my next video, bye guys.